Tiring. Good morning, everybody. We have a great edition of GoJo and Golic coming your way. Here's what you have to look forward to on today's show. We will talk top 5 NFL offenses and defenses before the season starts. We're so close, guys. We are almost there. And then we can actually talk about football that is being played. Plus, Jevon Holland, Nnamdi Madubuike, they will both be joining the program. And at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock, Jason Fitz. He's going to join us. The guys can't wait for that one. Stay tuned. All that coming up on GoJo and Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield at the DraftKings studio in Boston. Great show on the way for everybody. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings network. A reminder is we are now one day away, not only from the start of the season, but from our kickoff in Kansas City. Remember, you can check us out from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern, all the way in the lead up to the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Live from Kansas City, we'll be out there with the God Bless Football crew, Stu Gotts, Billy Gill, Trey Wingo, and the folks from the pregame power-up also going to pop in for that one. So plenty of great stuff from all of the programming around here at the DraftKings Network that we are excited about because, Dad, as Jesse said, today we are going to give you top 5 offenses and defenses. Tomorrow we are going to give you division winners and Super Bowl winners. And then we are going to get to the football and be free from all of this stuff. And I know it's going to feel really good.
It's great. It's great doing all the picks of the top offenses and defenses. We did award winners. We'll do division winners and Super Bowl because if you're wrong, nobody cares. You forgot about it. If you're right, you can brag about it. You can say, I picked that. That was my pick. I had it from the beginning. So we're almost in a no-lose situation unless you go overboard on your pick or something like that, which I will not do.
Oh, my sweet summer child, Dad, that just means that you don't exist on the internet or live there very often. I assure you, I am wrong almost every day, thousands of times in my feeds, and I'm reminded swiftly by all of the people that tend to follow for some reason. So you stay right where you are, preserved in amber in this perfect sanctum that you've created, because it's hell over on this side, brother. You don't want to be in these places. You don't want to be out there. I think Solomon, Missouri once famously said it. You don't want to be out here. Go go home and be a family man. So we will get to the top 10 or top 5 offenses in the NFL. And this was probably the hardest exercise that we have done, because at this point, we're trying to predict top 5 offenses and defenses at the start of this season, top 5 offenses or defense that we think will finish the season. I kind of went more in the here and now, understanding there could be some development too. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, and we want to get to that right after we get you updated on all the money that went out yesterday. I keep thinking we're done with extension season or the signings, and money keeps going out here and to interesting places that I think send some interesting message. Obviously, first and foremost, when we were talking on the show yesterday, the big news of the day was Trent Williams coming back and re-signing with the San Francisco 49ers. He inks a 3-year deal worth $82.6 million, $48 million due at signing, the most cash this season for a lineman. That $27.65 million minus $2 million in fines for holding out. He gets $5 million more than he was on the books for this season. So, Dad, he gets the love and some more of the guarantees that he was looking for in that deal. And San Francisco gets the best left tackle in football back to try and continue pursuing their dreams to be one of the top offenses in the league this year.
Yeah, this just goes to show you that it's not just the face value of the contract, it's the guaranteed money. Because Trent Williams had some years left on his deal. He wasn't going to be the highest paid anymore, but that's understandable. Next guys take you, it's timing of everything. But he was out of guaranteed money. And as the best left tackle in the league, or really for a negotiating point, that's what players are looking for. They're looking for guaranteed money, and he got it. And he got to miss camp. He pulled the perfect vet move. He got paid, and he didn't have to go to camp, and he just steps in week 1 and plays Monday night against the Jets, and will probably be one of the top left tackles in the league again. So win, win, win for one Trent Williams.
I always appreciate when guys are not petty, but prideful enough to want to be the highest paid. Like, Trent Williams clearly wanted his salary to reflect what he believes his standing in the league is this year. And we talked about Christian Darrisaw had signed a deal that was paying him $26 million a year to play left tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. Christian Darrisaw, who's a very good player, but at this point has not come close to what Trent Williams has accomplished in this league. And so now that Trent Williams' deal will pay him $27.65 million this upcoming season, you could see getting just enough over that to ensure people know exactly who Daddy is was something that they wanted built into here, as his agent trumpets that as something. Hey, I will be the highest paid lineman in the league this season.
It seems, and there's highest paid lineman, there's highest paid signing bonus on other players. The agent will always spin it, obviously, in a positive direction. But it does seem that position players, I should say, non-quarterbacks, it does kind of go by the hierarchy, right? There is timing, but then a guy who is considered the best will want his deal redone to be the highest paid everywhere except the quarterback position. The quarterback position, we get the non-best quarterback in the league taking turns being the highest paid in the league. So that's still, the quarterback position is still an outlier of highest paid. Because, you know, Dak Prescott will be the next highest paid. And I guess what throws a wrench in all that is Patrick Mahomes is considered the best quarterback in the league, and he signed that long-term deal that you can keep renegotiating. So it'll never really put him in the, unless they extend it, put him in the highest paid quarterback category.
No, likely not, and he seems to be pretty comfortable with that. He's one of those guys. We talked about it. Everyone's comfort level is different with what they want in this, what they believe they can make off the field, and certainly the priorities when it comes to team building. Don't begrudge anyone it, but that's just the way it goes. Other news, Michael Carter, the Jets defensive back, got paid 3 years, $30.75 million as a slot corner. So locking that down, I got a little confused because there was the Michael Carter running back for a while that used to be in New York, actually, that is no longer there. So congratulations to him. And Cam Hayward, the veteran for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had been talking a lot this offseason about wanting to feel that love, dealing with injury last year, the reception from fans, all these things that older players have to grapple with. He gets 3 years, $45 million, and $16 million guaranteed. So, Dad, for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's going to try and work out the offense that I think already has a higher floor than it did last year, the defense is still going to have to carry the day there. And TJ Watt is no doubt the face of that franchise, but Cam Hayward, the heartbeat in the middle, and has been for the better part of the last decade.
it's good to see the big ones getting paid, right? And older guys. Cam Hayward's 35. Trent Williams is 36. And they're still making the money, and deservedly so, because Hayward is the heartbeat of that defense. I know T.J. Watt is the stats maker and it puts the pressure on the quarterback and is the best player on that defense. Hell, damn near the best player, defensive player in the league. But Cam is the heart and soul of that defense, and Trent Williams is the heart and soul of that offensive line for San Francisco. So it's good to see the elderly in the league getting paid the way they are.
Exactly. Unfortunately, the elderly now are guys that came into the league around when I tried to come into the league, as Cam Hayward was one of the early veterans in that locker room in Pittsburgh that I encountered. And he's still out there doing his thing. Like the announcer said, there he is, defying the odds, 34 years old, decrepit by sports standards, marching onto the field. We're all so proud of him. No, Cam is actually still built for this. Every time we see him in person at the Super Bowl or something doing all this media, when the athletes go out amongst the media folks, because you know how it is, you watch them on the field or you watch a basketball game and you don't get appreciation until you're down there. The best part of player-led media is it gives a very clear indicator for all of the rest of us who might be a little further away from that with the microphone. When you get to Radio Row and you see Cam Hayward, you see Cam Newton walking around there, and you're reminded that these people are the 1% of the 1% in physical outliers. It's a great and humbling thing that I think we need as a sports media machine. The other thing we need as a sports media machine is lists. So, Dad, we are going to take all of these ideas of players that were signed this offseason, re-signed, and try and figure out how they help these teams become the best offenses or defenses in the league. So, Jesse, let's get to it. We're doing top fives on both sides of the ball before we kick off this season.
Yeah, let's start top five offenses and defenses. We'll go offenses, then we'll go defenses. So how about GoJo? Do you want to start with your top five offense?
Yeah, why don't we go through this? So it's interesting, and we'll go through the whole song and dance of how you measure this. If we look at team offense last season,
right,
and we go by yards per game, Miami was the number one offense last year, followed by San Francisco, Detroit, Buffalo, and Dallas. If we want to go expected points added per play, San Francisco jumps to the number one offense, followed by Dallas, Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. So it tends to be, no matter how you slice it, a similar group of teams. And so that is a starting point, Dad, and then taking into account what these teams did, who we think got better or worse this offseason. This is how my list went. I went number one. Now that they are whole again, I'll take the San Francisco 49ers. I think the benefit of consistency on that side of the ball with play caller, quarterback, and all the skill weapons there. I think especially if those guys right now, Christian McCaffrey, by all accounts, healthy and back in practice, ready to go. If George Kittle stays healthy, you've got Debo and Brandon Ayuk in that room. You've got the full complement for your quarterback. I think that goes well. Number two, and I think a lot of people are predicting this jump this year, I'll go Kansas City in this spot. I think this is a group that is, one, motivated to go back out there and show, and two, most statistics wasn't actually that bad last year. Again, we talk about some of these deeper statistics. EPA per play last year, the Chiefs ended up 10th in pro football. Yards per play, 10th in football on offense last year. So this is a group that by their standards slipped off, but by most normal standards isn't that far away from being great again. And I think those deep threats can help. And then I'll go Detroit, Miami, and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the ones I had the most consternation about, just because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries through the course of camp. Puka Nacua dealing with the knee injury, Matthew Stafford dealing with injury, their offensive linemen on the perimeter, it sounds like, have been a little bit banged up. And so you combine all those things together, and I have concerns at the beginning, but we saw last year when you get them all healthy on the field at the same time, that thing's a shredder. So that was my top five. Who is your top five?
Yeah, I mean, mine are basically the same five. Like you said, and what's the metric you use? The easiest is total yards, but there's so many different, or it's like who scores the most point wins, should it be points? But if you go by yards, you saw Miami, as you mentioned, was number one, San Fran was number two, and Detroit was number three in total yards. I actually have Detroit as the number one offense. I know Laporta is nicked up with his hammy right now, but this is for the whole season. So we keep talking about the weapons that San Francisco has, And you start to talk about the weapons that Detroit has, the number of players, the two backs, Montgomery and Gibbs, Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams could be looking for a breakout year at receiver. So I have Detroit number one. I have Kansas City.
I was going to say, if Detroit is going to end up as the number one offense, it's going to have to be because Jamison Williams goes crazy this year. Because that's the one thing that this offense has really lacked is any meaningful deep threat. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great receiver, but he's operating out of the slot. It affords you different things. And so having someone that can actually push over the top, that would have to be the case for that group if they're going to be the best offense in pro football.
Again, Mike, it was so close. Total yards, Miami was first. Detroit was third, 110 yards total separates them. San Francisco was second, separated by like 40 yards. So it's almost negligible, the difference in numbers when you're looking at a number one offense by yards, how close all those teams were actually, where one game could change it for each of them. So I have Detroit one. I have Kansas City two. I believe Patrick Mahomes when he said he was upset the way the offense played last year, even though they did win the Super Bowl. I know Marquise Brown is already ruled out for the first game with I believe with a shoulder, but still, this is for the season. They pick up Xavier Worthy, the speedy wideout. So I like them at two. I put San Fran at three, and I know they're loaded. They have all their weapons back. It took a little while. They're loaded. But as I said, it was almost inconsequential, the amount of yards that separated the top three, though I did drop Miami this year. I have the Rams number 4. I just like what they have put together. They're another one with depth at the wide receiver position. The tight end, Higbee, is going to be out for a little bit. He's going to miss the first. He's on the PUP list. But Kyron Williams, you pick up Blake Corum as well. So I like their multitude of talent on offense. And then I have Miami, who was number 1 last year, as number 5 this year. I still believe in them. And again, I just go to there's so few yards that separated the top 3 that they could just as easily be up there. But you know they're going to get theirs.
I think with Miami, the question for everyone tends to be a lot more about, the football late in the season, what we saw in the postseason against the Kansas City Chiefs. Can that running game pop up when they need it to? And the thing I just keep coming back to with them is just there's too much speed on the field. You re-signed Hill and Waddle this offseason. If Devon Achane is healthy, which we know he missed a long chunk of the middle of the season after an incredibly hot start out of that backfield, there's just track speed at too many positions on this offense, I think, for it to really fail. So that was the one I struggled placing the most. The other one's outside looking in, Dad, that I had a real tough time reckoning with. The Houston Texans, who the run game part is a factor that I'm considering. I want to see how that offensive line can do it. I want to see what Joe Mixon is going to mean to that group. But with the wide receiver room this deep, it might not matter. They might just be able to spread and tread now that they've added Diggs to a room that, if it's got a healthy Tank Dell too, just have so many horses that you can go to in a passing game of the quarterback we trust. And then I know, Nate Tice over at Yahoo Sports, who I've talked to a bunch, loves this Green Bay offense, believes Jordan Love can be one of those guys that really continues to take that next step. And if you're drafting based off of what we saw in the last 9 games of last year, the most recent stuff, that was a top 5 offense in the NFL by a lot of standards, and looks like it could very well be this year. So I think with them, and then once you get to the Ravens, that's probably that upper group where, especially in the 4-5 spot, I could have subbed a lot of those names in and felt pretty good about where we were at.
Ravens are an interesting one between Lamar and Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers was obviously huge for them, Rashad Bateman. So I don't know if they have the amount of weapons some of the other teams have as far as quantity, but they certainly have quality as well. So I agree. I agree with those teams that could be in the top 5.
And I would throw Buffalo in there as well, because, again, for all of the consternation about Buffalo's record last year, the weapons and usage, we've all talked about ad nauseum this offseason, how Stephon Diggs' usage and yardage and totals all went down in the back half of that season. where Buffalo also, and I'm not saying this is correlation, causation, anything like that, but the Buffalo offense made a choice about how they were going to live, and it was with less Steph Diggs, and that was still, by EPA per play, the third best offense in the NFL in the 2023 season. So that's another one probably in that same group. So that really top 8 or 9 offenses, I think all are in that place. For Buffalo, it's obviously, hey, you do have a lot of newness. There's not only no Steph Diggs, but no Gabe Davis in that offense that's now led by, a group of players. Khalil Shakir, who's the only guy that's caught passes in the wide receiver room from Josh Allen, the tight end room that's going to have to lead the day. And then for Baltimore, it's the new faces on the offensive line that I think for everybody is understandably a question we're going to ask. Even though, Dad, weapons-wise, getting Mark Andrews back in that fold for that gives that group a level of versatility that not a lot of teams, especially from the run standpoint, play action, what they can do, and how prolific Lamar Jackson was in a more efficient, less play action overall last year, but more efficient, especially going deep with it. I think all of that is further emboldened by the return of Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I don't buy into Buffalo as much as you do. We'll see, but I agree about Stephon Diggs and his productivity waned toward the end of the season. Another top 5 offensive team last year that neither one of us mentioned, because I definitely believe they're taking a step back, is Dallas.
This is a mistake, and that's a mistake by me in terms of not lumping them in with that group here as well. Dallas, I also firmly believe in that group. Like, again, they're out of the top 5 because, again, you got 2 rookies starting on your offensive line. There are going to be bumps in the road that come with that, but the rest of it, lather, rinse, repeat.
Oh, I don't have them in the top 5. I don't even know if they'll be in the top 8 of offenses, top 10. I just don't buy into their running.
They'll be a top 10. They'll be a top 10 offense. I'll bet something significant on that.
I just don't buy into them as much this year. I definitely think
it's literally just 2 offensive linemen that are different with the offense. That's it.
No running attack at all. No running attack.
All right, I mean, Tony Pollard wasn't good last year when he was with them there. So I'm saying if it's not going to be demonstrably better or worse there, that could be a team that I still think is a contender for all this. At GoJo and Golic on Twitter is obviously where you can yell at me about this. Dad won't see it clearly because he lives a much healthier brand of life and doesn't ingest all the poison that you guys bring his way. Coming up next, we'll head to the coach's corner and find out a different approach that one-star coach in college football is taking to a big-time rivalry game we get this weekend. Next. back to GoJo and Golic as we are inches away now from the 2024 season. We'll talk to one of the guys looking to make a big impact on that. Jevon Holland, Miami Dolphins safety, going to join us here in the next 10 minutes, which is fitting, Dad, because we got to do the top 5 defenses now in the NFL. We hit the offenses in the last segment, so I'll let you start it off this time, Dad. We know a lot of the names involved, but who do you have as your top 5 this season?
Yeah, there were 5 defenses that actually held teams to under 300 yards, again, if we're going on total yards. By the way, Carolina was one of them, and neither one of us has them in their top 5.
Because Carolina let all of their quality defensive pieces leave town, and Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu and everybody. They let that side of the ball get gutted so that they could go and spend, and in some cases probably overspend a bit on weapons to their quarterback. So, yeah, they willingly made that happen themselves.
I'm going to go with the Jets as the top defense. Quinnen Williams on the line. I love Quincy Williams, a linebacker. I mean, he has got a motor on him. Obviously, DB led by Sauce Gardner. I love the way their defense plays. If they get any help from the offense, which they should, as long as Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, they won't get worn down like they did last year, but still finish as one of the a better defense, knowing that there would be a better defense. I think with a little bit of help from the offense, they could be the top defense in the NFL. So I have them number 1. I have Cleveland number 2. Cleveland was one of the top defenses last year, and there's no reason they shouldn't be again. I have Baltimore at number 3. You talk right up the spine with Pierce at the nose, with Roquan Smith and backer, and Kyle Hamilton at strong safety. I mean, that's how you build a defense, right up the gut. I have Chicago 4th. Chicago finished the season incredibly well. They got help in the offseason. Again, Ryan Poles could be the executive of the year. So I love the way they finished the season, especially against the run. Not so much against the pass, but especially against the run. They get some pressure on the quarterback this year. I think that would help, but I'll put them in the top 5. And then I have Kansas City at number 5. They led the way. They led that team to their Super Bowl win last year, and still, I think, without question, a top 5 defense.
Man, all right, so you're really bullish on Chicago because you're banking on basically the back half of last season being the truth for them, because overall last season, yards per game, they were 12th in the league. EPA per game last year, they were 15th in the league. So middle of the pack group that caught fire at the end of last season, a bit turnover heavy, which is probably why I shied away. As my top 4, Dad, I think it is the easiest choice in the world. The Cleveland Browns are going to be the best defense in football this year. Terrifying force of nature. That secondary in particular, when you start to look at all the names up and down there from a coverage perspective that they can go out and win with, it's just sickening. So I look at them and say, yeah, that is, combined with what they've got up front, obviously the reigning defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, who has had double-digit sacks for each of the last 6 seasons. I just think this group simplifies football in such an incredible way. Hey, we got great rushers that are going to get up the field. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a linebacker that can be a value add into that downhill. And then our defense can play man coverage and go best on best against you guys and not have any worries about it. So I think they're going to be the best group in the NFL. After that, I go Jets. I go Kansas City at 3. I drop Baltimore down to 4. And then I throw Dallas in there at 5. I know we have concerns about the run defense, but that team still has Micah Parsons. They're getting their best corner and Trevon Diggs back. I know on the other side, you're dealing with some injury to start the season, but your best ball hawking corner, a pass rusher that still generates an insane amount of pressure from all over that line, new coordinator and Mike Zimmer, so obviously some things are going to change. And if they get any production out of that run stopping based on schematic change or a couple of the very few personnel moves they made this offseason, or a player like Mozzie Smith finally decides to do a little bit more of what they brought him in there to do, I think that unit should still probably maintain. Kind of like the offense. It's, hey, I understand to get where they want to go, we've got to improve a couple of key areas that pop up in January and February football. But as far as the stuff played in the fall months, they've kind of got that down.
Yeah, I'm just not up I'm down on Dallas this year, and it's not because I played most of my career with the Eagles. It's not that. I just don't. I know they were 12 wins the last 3 years. I just don't see that happening. I see it being Philadelphia's division this year. I see them taking a step back.
Yeah, I don't, not as much as you do, and like that's fine. I've said they're still a double-digit win team. I'm pretty comfortable with that, but it's the Jets are the interesting one just because, and really you could say this for the Browns too last year. It was made more impressive by the fact that for the Browns you cycled through 4 quarterbacks, albeit Joe Flacco actually gave you the production you were looking for from your starting high-paid quarterback towards the end of the season, so they got help. The Jets really never had any of that. The Jets were constantly put in disadvantaged situations by their bad quarterbacking in the last few seasons and managed to thrive in spite of that, which also makes it that much more incredible. Dad, the other units, it'll be interesting. A unit that's almost always in this range perennially and what they do this year in the New England Patriots, where obviously, you've got some health concerns on that team. Christian Barmore have been dealing with health issues during the preseason, and we're not sure what that's going to look like for him in the season at all coming up. Matthew Judon, your best pass rusher, arguably from last year, now plays for the Atlanta Falcons. You've got, guys like Christian Gonzalez coming back off injury and a whole new coaching staff that's got the same DNA. Like, Dad, I have a feeling more often than not, this is going to be pretty close to what we've seen under there, since this was also the side of the ball Gerard Mayo was working on before. But that's the group I'm probably most interested to see. Like the other ones in this range, Buffalo, San Francisco, who brought in Leonard Floyd to try and supplement that pass rush opposite Nick Bosa that they really struggled with for a lot of last season, by and large, until they brought Chase Young over and got that bump later on. Is there anyone else, the Steelers maybe, that deserve to be mentioned in this conversation for near this top 5 range outside looking in?
No, I think San Francisco, I think they are probably the one. New England, I know that they have the blueprint, but I don't know if they have the players. I would say San Francisco would be the main team.
I'll say one other team looking out here, and they were more middle of the pack last year in terms of a lot of these stats. I'm trying to see if maybe yards per play does them any more justice here. Now, the Texans were around the middle of the pack last year, but Dad, you look at this group now, I think losing Sheldon Rankins in the middle, something I'm still interested to see how they offset just from a pass rush perspective, but you bring Danielle Hunter over opposite Will Anderson, who had the kind of season that justified spending that capital last year. You bring over Aziz Al-Shair, who played for D'Amico Ryans in San Francisco at that linebacker spot, as they, got to shore up rush offense and rush defense. It's kind of the conversation we had around the other team in Texas and Dallas, but Jalen Petre through the preseason looks like he's starting to be more of the dude that we saw at Baylor. Obviously on the outside, Derek Stingley Jr., most people estimate he seems like he's ready to make that jump into being one of the top corners in the league. And so I just think, again, combined with the fact that their offense gives them so much help in terms of not leaving them on the field for long stretches, they've got good depth, they've got pass rushers and pass coverage, and that seems like a young group that now in year 2 in that defensive system has a good chance to take a big step.
Man, it does, but there's just something about the thought of Houston. I know they have everything going forward and they surprised everybody last year, but there's just something about the next year that has me a little bit worried that they won't live up. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but the expectations are unbelievably high. The talent level is high, but I just scratch my head a little bit at, can they sustain it? Can they go the next level? All signs point toward they should. This is just a flat out gut feeling by me that maybe, and even stagnant wins a division, but possibly a little bit of a step back. It feels weird saying that because they're built to go forward, but I just have a funny feeling.
I think it's just because when everyone talks nice about something, the natural reaction is to go, well, this might be too good to be true, when I just can't look at any part of the roster that they've built and see a reason for regression there. One defense that we didn't mention in this that's going to be a huge factor in this upcoming season will be the Miami Dolphins. They got some new pieces on the way in. Obviously, Christian Wilkins on the way out, but most importantly, Anthony Weaver takes over as the defensive coordinator there for the departing Vic Fangio, who is now at the Philadelphia Eagles. So coming up next, we'll catch up with one of their safeties in Jevon Holland and talk about what that change has looked like through training camp and how they feel heading into the 2024 season next.
to GoJo and Golic. Miami hosts the Jags in week 1. Miami 3.5-point home favorites. We got safety Jevon Holland joining us now with GoJo and Golic to preview the matchup.
All right, game week rolls on here. Delighted to head out and talk to Miami Dolphins safety Jevon Holland, who is here with us now on behalf of TCL, promoting their Seasons of More campaign, which we can't wait to hear about. But Jevon, congratulations. You made it through training camp. How's it feel to finally be in a game week back in this mode?
It feels good, man. It feels good. Trying to get back into the flow of things. After camp, you kind of get lost track of the days in camp, whether it's Saturday, Tuesday, you don't really know. But now that I'm kind of settled in, game week, I'm just going through my process and starting it back up again.
Before we go forward, we got to go back. I know you were born and raised in British Columbia and then moved to Pleasanton, California. And you went to Oregon, but I know you chose Oregon. My son and I are both alum of Notre Dame. We played football at Notre Dame. You chose Oregon over Notre Dame. How close were you to going to Notre Dame?
I was relatively close. I had a official visit set up for South Bend, and after going to see Oregon and talking a couple times with the coaches, I was like, yeah, I want to stay on the West Coast anyway. So South Bend was just a little too far for me, but it definitely was up there. It was top 5 for me. I just couldn't get that far away from home.
All right, so we can blame geography for this, so I don't have to lay awake at night wondering what else we could have done to lure you to South Bend. That at least helps a little bit, and I'd say heading out to Eugene, pretty good decision, has worked out very well for you so far, and has you here now going into a new season where, for you guys, part of it on defense is a new coordinator, Anthony Weaver, coming over from that Baltimore Brain Trust. We've heard so much about this defense in the last season with how much success they had last year in Baltimore. So what has it been like now finishing camp, going through, the offseason install, and then again in training camp, getting used to what this defense asks of you in particular at safety?
It's been exciting. It does ask a lot of the safety specifically. We've got a wide range of responsibilities that we have to accomplish. But as a safety, that's kind of what we sign up for. You know what I mean? The quarterbacks of the defense, making sure people are aligned, set up, and especially in game and during the play, having to make checks and calls and realign people and adjust. But that's what I love. That is the epitome of what a safety does, and this defense really exemplifies that. So I've been really excited, every day getting to work, being able to, learn more about it, dive deeper into the system. And this is my 4th scheme in my 4 years of being in the league. So I'd have to say this is my favorite one so far.
I was going to say, it asks a lot of you to know different schemes. We always talk about offensive schemes different, but same for defense, the different terminology, different language, and a bunch of different players. You had a lot of guys go, a lot of guys come in. You're one of the mainstays there. So not only do you have to know the new X's and O's, but you have to get chemistry with your new teammates. How has that gone?
It's been nice. It's been nice getting to know the guys. Every year I've kind of had the same, process of getting to know the defense, getting to know my teammates at the same time. And, this year has been pretty delightful seeing the guys just fly around and everyone like-minded and get into the rock. So that, like I said, man, I mean, in my 4 years, this has been my favorite training camp and my favorite process, trying to keep the main thing and, continue to elevate.
I would say, it's an important year for you personally, contract-wise. How do you manage that stuff in terms of your approach to the conversations that are going on there, but also your desire to just go out and play ball?
Playing ball is always going to be, the main goal in the main situation. So for me, with the contract stuff, I just let my agents handle it and let them, talk amongst the upstairs in the front office. And that really allows me to just continue to be focused on what's in front of my feet and 5 yards in front of me. So I'm just, taking it one step at a time. And when that time comes, that time comes. And of course, I'm going to be juiced for it because I love Miami. I want to stay down here. And that's basically how I handle it. And I stay on the golf course, man. That's how I just ease my mind. Stay on the links and just, shoot them well.
Okay, look, how long have you been playing golf?
I've been playing golf for about 8 months now. And I'm pretty good. I just shot 82 yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Good Lord.
That's unbelievable. I was going to say, you go on the golf course to relax. That's usually frustration time for hacks, going out and getting frustrated.
Nah, I got to just calm down. I love it. It's an escape. I do that and fishing. So for me, golf is just an escape. And I just like to be out there, relax and chill. It's not physically taxing, very relaxing. And it's only mentally frustrating when, you know, you can't hit the ball right. But hey, don't let one bad shot mess up all the other shots. So just got to keep on rolling.
How'd you catch the bug? Was it a teammate that you played with and got you out there? How'd it happen?
Yeah, so actually some friends of mine DM'd me on Instagram. They're like, bro, let's go golfing. Stay Tranquilo. It's a podcast down here. My homeboy Andre and David. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Went out, golfed with them one time. And I was like, okay, this is all right. I'm terrible. But on the last, we played like a 9-hole course. And on the last hole was like a par 4, smoked the drive. And I was like, I can do this. I can do this. Yep. That was like during bye week. And so then after that, I just kept on going. By March, I was hitting pretty well, figuring out that I need better shafts, like shaft stiffness and grip and whatnot. So now I'm locked in for real.
Oh yeah. You got into the equipment phase of it. So which is more relaxing to you? Because I do like golf, but I love fishing. I'd imagine down in Florida, it's bass fishing. That how relaxing that is.
Yeah, so I like doing freshwater canals because they're everywhere in Florida. So I just pull off on the side of the road. Freshwater canals, live bait, swim bait, crankbait. I just whatever they got at the bait shop, ask them some tips, and then I'll go out there. Peacock bass, snakeheads. Largemouth bass, Mayans, tilapia. Dude, I love fishing. I think fishing is more relaxing just because, you're out there on the water, kind of just chilling. But I get more excitement out of hitting a great shot, a great putt, like a 15-foot lag putt, sink it. I get juiced. So yeah, man, love them both.
All right, the Jevon Holland Outdoor Show sounds like it has a future on some channel that we need to work out. Of your teammates now, we talked about you getting to know the guys. Which teammate would you most like to go fishing with, and which teammate is the best golfer on your guys' team?
Teammate I'd love to go fishing with, Zach Sealer, very outdoorsman, fishing, hunting, anything outdoors, Zach Sealer. And then golfing, Jason Sanders. I think him, Tua is really good, Durham, Jordan Poyer, Kendall, they're all really good golfers.
Now, what would Mike McDaniel, how would he fare fishing? Because I feel like he's leaned all the way into like the Miami Vice cool vibe, so I don't know how he would look with a pole in his hands.
I just can't see him in camo or anything like that, honestly. I can't. Like he's there, definitely Miami Vice. You've seen the picture with the beard growing out and the buffs on. I don't think he's a fisherman / golfer / anything outdoors. So but hey, different strokes for different folks, man.
So as we move away from the relaxing part of your time off the field, on the field, you guys open up with Jacksonville. So talk about defending a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Trevor's got all the tools on his belt, man, and he's got a great receiving core behind him and a great running game too, and Travis. So I'm really looking forward to it. We faced him our rookie year in 2023 in London. And it was an exciting game. So I'm just looking forward to running that back. We played them last year in the preseason game. That was also fun. So it's going to be a fun game. They're going to throw the ball, run the ball. It's going to be a game of all aspects of the game are going to be used. So I'm looking forward to going out there competing.
All right, there's going to be a lot of big plays in that game. You made a huge play last year, though, with TCL involved. So you had a 99-yard pick six on Black Friday last year that unlocked like $1 million in TV giveaways. So tell me what you guys got going on this year to try and one-up that.
Yeah, so TCL's back with the season of more. They're giving away $2.5 million worth of TVs this year as well. And they're bringing back the Black Friday $1 million TV giveaway too. So you can go to TCL.com and tap in for all the fun prizes and things that got set up for that. But yeah, man, that 99-yard unlocked the 98-inch TV. I got that in the crib right now. Movies, games, fight nights. Love it. I truly love it.
Man, that is awesome. Wow.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like everyone won on that front there. Well, you know what? The 98-inch TV will be perfect to watch the eventual Jevon Holland fishing show that we get greenlit once the people with all the ideas come together on this. So, Jevon, we appreciate the time, man. Best of luck this season, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., and Mike Golic Sr. And we've been talking storylines all summer heading into the NFL season. As we saw from the NFL promo, Taylor Swift prominently featured in our off-season stories, and the NFL ready to feature her again. Thank the Lord, our prayers have been answered. Also, prayers have been answered on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, we have bets tailored, that is a play on words, to some of the stories that we have discussed this offseason. Here's what the DraftKings Sportsbook has cooked up for tomorrow's game. We got Swift start, Travis Kelce, 22-plus receiving yards in the first quarter. You can get that for plus 225, and we're not worthy. Xavier Worthy to have 50-plus yards single reception. That's plus 800. Zay Flowers to have 142-plus receiving yards. You can get that for plus 1,600. And who better to discuss all of these than two guys that'll be in Kansas City tomorrow? If you haven't heard, we're going to be live from Kansas City, not only from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow on GoJo and Golic, but also live before the game from 4 to 7 p.m. for our special kickoff in Kansas City. We're going to have GoJo, Golic, Stu Gotts, Trey Wingo, Billy Gill, and more for 3 hours. What more could you ask for? Make sure that you tune in for all of that amazingness. So what do you guys think? Early success for Travis Kelce here, plus 225 to get 22 yards in the first quarter. He's flying high off an amazing offseason with Taylor Swift, the Taylor Swift.
You know what I will say on this one? I went and looked this up on Next Gen Stats, and I also had to do a little bit of tailoring myself. But if we just go since 2020, Dad, you have any idea how many times Travis Kelce has caught for more than 22 yards in the first quarter of an NFL football game since 2020?
The way you're asking it, I'm going to say none.
22 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if that's not a sign to bet that, I don't know what is.
Wow.
I thought you were going reverse psychology there. This is the bet I would take. Now, it's the one that pays off the least, obviously. But it just where you usually talk about defenses ahead of offenses, these are two really good defenses in Kansas City and Baltimore. I'm not going to go with Xavier Worthy with a 50-yard reception or Zay Flowers with 142 receiving yards, but I'll go with Travis getting 22 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, like the Xavier Worthy single 50-yard reception is an interesting one to me just because we saw that was such a priority and heard it was such a priority from the Chiefs. God, I'm under attack by a fly in my own home right here. You guys saw me. I had to punch that thing right out of the air. It's been crazy in here trying to distract me from these takes. But no, Xavier Worthy for a one-and-done 50-yard bomb, given the time that the Chiefs have shown us already. That's just what we've seen of, like, practice footage from media members, that he's just huck-it-chuck-it football with that guy all the time. I wouldn't hate to sprinkle something on that just because all you need is one to hit. With Travis Kelce, hey, listen, we know last season – a little bit of a decline, especially in the regular season. The first time, it would have been his 8th straight 1,000-yard season he just barely missed. And so by his standard and Dad, given what we know, Travis Kelce is the guy you need there in the postseason, not in the regular season. I do always wonder now. He talked about it the other day. He asked if the Chiefs asked him to take a diminished role or a different role, and he said, I probably wouldn't listen if they told me, but it is that idea that with an offense full of new faces, I am interested to see, hey, is feeding Travis right off the bat going to be where Mahomes tries to go and allocate resources? The flies in my cup.
Well, I think a lot has to do, now they have a great offense, but a lot has to do with the defense as well, right? And Baltimore has a good defense, and, you know, maybe you take what you can get.
Maybe, certainly something there. So Xavier Worthy, plus 800 to go 50-yard single reception. Zay Flowers to have, it would be 142 yards to get him to 1,000 career receiving yards. That I definitely don't see that one just because, you know, I'd expect them to probably spread it around a little bit more. You're probably going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker given the offensive line is also going against Chris Jones and has all those new parts. But just kind of like what we said about Baltimore's defense. Kansas City's got one of the defenses we said, top 5 defense in the league. I don't think they're going to give up 130-plus to a receiver there. So now that we have got that one on lockdown, and again, we're looking forward to that. Hopefully we get some of those. It'd be nice to see. Let's put it this way. I would feel really good about my Chiefs number 2 overall offense pick if we are cashing that Zay Flowers over 50 yards on a single reception bet, because that's the element of the offense they need to get back if we're going to get to that point. Jesse, let's look ahead at another one of the matchups this weekend. The Eagles and Packers, one team people expect to take a big step forward and one that's just trying to get back to where they were.
Okay, so here's one that's kind of interesting. You can get Jordan Love to throw 3+ interceptions for plus 800. So I guess that depends. Or you think they're going to take a big step forward here? It's unlikely. So it sounds like you don't think there's a chance of a major regression for Jordan Love this season, GoJo?
No.
I don't know. Like, this would not be what I will say is I think with Jordan Love, what is possible is bumps in the road. He is still a player who hasn't started a lot of games, and he's a guy who is inclined to go and push the football down the field. It's not check down Charlie that we're talking about. So I would hope that there's still interceptions. That means he's taking risks this season. But 3-1 game, Dad, with this Eagles secondary in particular that's trying to kind of rebuild itself. CJ Gardner-Johnson comes back over on that side. Darius Slay aging in his career. Can he still be the same big play guy? And then, Quinyon Mitchell is a rookie going out there and slotting in the nickel spot. There's just a lot of new overall on that defense, and I'm not sure if this is the group that I think is going to give Jordan Love nightmares.
I agree. Changes on that defensive back front, age on that defensive back front, and a receiving group where Jordan doesn't have to force it to one guy. They have one of the youngest groups, but one of the deepest groups, maybe not of big names of proven talent, but of guys that have come through. So he has an array of receivers to throw to where he doesn't have to zero in on one, which could lead to interceptions. He can dump it off more than a few different places. So no way I see 3 interceptions in this game. I wouldn't see a 3 interception game in his season.
What about this one, Dad? Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs to combine for 200 or more rush yards in this game. Saquon, one of the most oft-talked about running back acquisitions this offseason. Great line in Philly still, even sans Jason Kelce. And on the other side, a Green Bay Packers team that new defense, so maybe that scares you away. Jeff Hafley is the coordinator, more of that attacking style, but they were a bottom-of-the-barrel run defense last year by and large.
Yeah, I mean, I know these are reliant on 2 individual rushers in Barkley and in Jacobs, but I don't see it. I just don't. Not in game 1. Maybe as the season rolls on, I don't see it in game 1. Again, it doesn't have to be 100 each. It could be a lot of 100, a high 100 for one or a mid 100 for one, and not 100 for the other when you're just talking about a combined. But I don't see it happening. I think it could be close, but I would not go with it.
All right, Dad, what about Jalen Hurts, either over 300 yards passing or over 75 yards rushing? And last year, but remember, before the fall for the Eagles at the beginning of the season, Jalen Hurts went over 300 yards 4 times in the first 8 weeks of last season. So came out of the gates hot, that petered out. Would you count on him getting back to there in either of those spots?
I mean, you're talking about in Green Bay, a new defensive coordinator, defense that was trying to rebuild off of just a bad relationship of coordinator and players, and the receiving core that he has. I think Saquon's going to get the bulk of the running, so I'll bet on that and say he goes over 300 just with the shiny toys he has to throw to.
Yeah, I mean, that one obviously best odds at plus 250 that you can get there for either of those. And this is kind of newness on both sides. What is Jeff Hafley's defense that we expect? Jair Alexander and that group playing a lot more press man, getting up there and getting physical with guys like Devonta Smith and, A.J. Brown. Do that at your own risk. That guy is gigantic. But the biggest thing I am excited to see is what does the quarterback-led rushing portion of this offense look like under Kellen Moore going into the 2024 season? We've heard all offseason about 95% different on offense, everything going into it. How are they going to marry that with something that is objectively one of the best parts of what your now highly paid quarterback does in a season where he's trying to bounce back in a big way? So some things to keep an eye on there. We'll obviously get to plenty more of those as we get closer to kickoff for the entire weekend, not just the opening night of the season like we've got coming up in Kansas City, but the entire NFL calendar that gets ready to go. Coming up next, though, we'll take a look back. The AP poll just comes out with its new top 25 in college football. We'll give you the biggest risers, fallers, and our buddy Jason Fitz stops by with his winners from the weekend that was. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, hour number 2 here. Coming up in a little bit, Nnamdi Madubuike, the defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, who is going by Nnamdi this year. Justin Madubuike is what you've known him as. He is proudly Nigerian-American, and so wants to honor that, wants to be more true to himself, and is going to be a name you've seen already reflected in the Ravens locker room, and so it's going to be reflected with us here. So when you hear us say Nnamdi Madubuike, that is who we're talking about. He's coming up on the show in just a little bit to talk about the Ravens' upcoming season. But right now, Jason Fitz, host and analyst over at Yahoo Sports, as well as on Fox Sports Radio, where you can hear him on Saturdays, kind enough to join us to talk some college football, because Fitzy, after week 1's madness, we got the latest round of the top 25 poll from the AP this last weekend. Some big risers, some big fallers. So good morning to you, sir. And of this group now that we saw coming off week 1, who have you been most surprised to see the rise or fall of in this poll?
So I'm not trying to get around your question, but I think the most surprising thing is that somebody didn't rise at all. And that to me is Penn State. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're Penn State and you go to West Virginia, who's supposed to be a decent football team, you show a modern offense that we've been waiting to see. Drew Aller did a beautiful job of pushing the ball downfield, great accuracy. Loved everything about the way Penn State dominated in that game. And what did they get for playing an actual opponent in an actual road game? A net 0, a net nothing. They stayed at 8. Like, they didn't move at all. So I'm looking at it saying, how is it possible that we can sit here and reward a bunch of cupcake games and not at least reward? Like, I all respect to Notre Dame getting a big win, they move up. That's what should happen when you get a big win in a true road game. For Penn State to be stuck at 8, Mike, absolutely infuriating to me. I don't understand it.
That's it. You know what? That's a very good point. I didn't. I didn't. As I looked at the gainers and the fallers, I didn't realize that they stayed square. That is pretty bad. How about of the teams that lost, that we thought would win, that were surprising losses? To where is it just a 1, or in Florida State's case, a 2-week thing that they can rectify?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk about the losers. Let's talk about Clemson for a second, because guys, I mean, Clemson's still number 25. It makes me wonder how bad number 26 is, because for anyone that says they competed for a half, I'll just remind you that we see bad teams compete with great teams for the first half of the first game all the time. What Clemson really proved to us in that game, to me, is that they're just like the rest of the lower middle class of college football at this point. Like, they can hang with the big boys for a half, and then all of a sudden the big boys get angry. So, you know, for me, the fact that Clemson is still ranked, to me, bit of a curious statement to me. I know it's early in the season and everybody says these things right themselves, but if the only reason you were as high as you were is because that you have some brand recognition and we just presume that that brand is going to be good, then don't we have to put weight into what we actually saw on the field? So I think Clemson still being ranked is a bit surprising.
I mean, that's probably just a respect to the defense, right? Because you can't really look at that game and say, hey, the defense is what lost it for them. Eventually, when your offense is averaging 3 yards a play, even the best defenses are going to suffer by and large. So I think that's what a lot of this is, hey, Clemson's defense against the non-Georgia bracket of talent is probably going to keep them in a bunch of games. And then they're betting on the same thing Clemson's been betting on, development of Cade Klubnik. It's interesting looking with those two teams, Jason, and Florida State, who obviously has plummeted outside of the top 25 in the AP poll after not 1 but 2 sample sizes and data points that looked horrific for that team based on expectation. We're kind of in a middle ground where finding that way to thread the needle when it comes to the way that we discuss the portal, I think now that we get another year of sample size and all this is going to be really interesting, because on one side, Clemson, we know, is famously spurned it. Dabo Swinney wants to do his development out of high school, stick with his guys, maintain loyalty, all those things, and has had this slow degradation of the product on one side. And on the other side, you've got Florida State that had a lot of success with the portal before, but now after losing a ton of talent to the NFL and trying to do it again, especially at quarterback, you've seen a big drop off there. So I wonder, Fitz, is that kind of the volatility we're going to have to prepare from more and more often with a lot of these teams is, hey, unless you've got that elite bedrock of Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama recruiting up top, are you going to have to prepare yourself for, hey, we're going to get a couple of years where we hit this right, and then we're going to get a couple of years where we hit this thing really bad and have to hit reset?
Isn't that to a certain degree what, and I'm just talking about the football coach here, what Mel Tucker experienced at Michigan State? His first year, he goes in and he absolutely crushes it because he gets Kenneth Walker III and a couple other big transfers. It's great. He gets himself a $100 million contract, and then we figure out, live by the portal, die by the portal. And, you know, there was a moment on game day on Saturday that I really thought would go viral where they were talking about the kids that were getting paid. And Nick Saban casually said, yeah, but you got to watch out because if you pay the wrong guys, you're ass out of luck, right? Like, he said that on TV, and I thought, man, that's such a truism that needs to be echoed. And you're right. Like, Ole Miss this year is going to be a massive case study on, can you just go in and treat college football like free agency in the NFL? And if you do, can it work? Mike Norvell is interesting to me because, Mike, I was around him a little bit at Memphis, and I really like Coach. But since he got to Florida State, we've heard more stories of not being able to get the locker room together than we have of being able to get the locker room together. And if you take away the starting quarterback that obviously helped him have so much success in Jordan Travis, he hasn't had tremendous success outside of that. So I think part of this comes down to, if you're Norvell and you're going to use the transfer portal to this level, can you as a coach bring together people quickly and efficiently? And if you can't, then your team's going to do this. He deserves to be on the hot seat the way they've looked the first couple of weeks.
I will say this, Dad, and one of the interesting things to me that Jason mentioned there about that Nick Saban bite is, if you pay the wrong guy, we still don't know what the ramifications of that are in terms of roster decisions. Because remember, the collectives that are paying players right now, this might change with the court ruling soon, where the NCAA would have schools paying out to players now. But these are entities that are associated and more in-house now than they were, but still not totally under the control of the school and coaches. If a player is being paid a large sum of money, we don't know how much that affects the decision-making. The way we see in the NFL, where sometimes a team will be loyal to a player because they've sunk a ton of money into them, and they're going to make it work no matter what. Because while I think DJ Uiagalelei is a disappointing part of Florida State's team this year, he is by no means the most, considering what we expected of the lines of scrimmage there. It is hard to look at the rest of that team if he continues to struggle mightily and not at least try somebody else. And you do wonder, I don't know for sure, I'm just kind of wondering out loud, do the financials of that have any effect on the decisions these coaches are making now?
Well, I think the coaches go to the collectives, don't they? And say, we need this guy and it's going to cost this much money. I mean, it's like free agency. Oh, no,
I get that,
NFL.
But I'm saying in terms of if you bench a player or not, then like, hey, we said we needed money to go out here and get a DJ Uiagalelei, but now through 2 games, if it's not looking great, you hear the home crowd chanting for Brock Glenn, the backup. Do you then have to all of a sudden weigh what you're paying him with the decision of sitting him down?
I think winning supersedes what you paid somebody if they're not getting the job done. And while I agree with you, he's not the lone problem. It's the lines of scrimmage. You have to do what you have to do to win. And they brought in portal guys, Jason, and they haven't gotten it together, where Miami, it certainly has gotten together. So there's that's the other side of the coin there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Miami, by the way, I think one of the biggest pleasant surprises of the weekend, not just because they win big, but because of the way they looked when they won big. But I feel like there's this Buddy Garrity Friday Night Lights thing that's happening behind the scenes, where it's like, man, we put all this money in this guy, we want him. But you're right. Miami's a proof positive that when it works, especially when you have a quarterback that can be that guy. Like, I don't think college football all of a sudden is that much different than the NFL. You've either got a quarterback and you have a chance, or you don't, right? And so you're going to have a quarterback that has the mobility to work around the line issues you guys are both smartly talking about, because, like, frankly, I always go back to what GoJo said years ago about getting an offensive line in sync and getting all 5 guys to move together at one time. That takes time. So you got to have, we saw it for Notre Dame, like Notre Dame's offensive line was supposed to be outmatched. And early on, they were a few times. And Riley Leonard was able to use his athleticism to get around it. Like, you've either got that guy at quarterback and suddenly you look brilliant, or you don't have that guy at quarterback and suddenly it looks like you don't know what the hell you're doing.
No, it is. And I think ultimately what this boils down to is player evaluation is still at the heart of this, right? You've got to go scout and find, whether it's in the portal or in high school, a guy. And it's a little more dire in the portal when it's a more fully formed player you're bringing over. It's a guy in DJ who has been at 2 schools already, and so you can't get him indoctrinated as much into the things that you do because he's got so many reps doing things a completely different way. It's just like I had veteran coaches come in along the lines of scrimmage. My offensive line coach my last year, Harry Heastan, comes in, and with Zach Martin, he wasn't going to be able to change everything a ton about a guy that good's game. It was about polish at that point, because when you've logged that many snaps, you're kind of a fully formed product then. So I just think it's a fascinating kind of byproduct of this whole conversation that team building, as different as it seems now, still boils down to the same teams. The best teams are still evaluating at a higher level there. Jason, you brought up Penn State as one of those teams you think is deserving of more respect. They are inside the top 10 right now. Let's talk about Oregon on the other side, though. How worried were you about what you saw? That was a team that a lot of people, myself included, had penciled into the college football playoff, potential contenders in the Big Big Ten, and they let Idaho hang around for a long portion of that game here. Does that frighten you off at all?
I mean, it made me nervous. Like at Yahoo, Oregon was my preseason national champion prediction, and because of that, Dylan Gabriel, my Heisman winner. Because let's face it, the quarterback of the best team always wins, right? So had all this worked out in my mind, and I sit down with my popcorn, ready to watch this. I'm thinking this is going to be absolutely delightful, and instead, what we saw was an offense that just looked, frankly, out of sync, a team that didn't look like they had their foot on the gas at all. It was a disappointing effort, but I still this is where I think we do have to combine some of the things we know, some of the things we can bank on. We can bank on the talent overall that team has. We can bank on the speed that wasn't on display overall that team has. We can bank on the coaches for that team. It just felt like a flat effort from the outset. That happens sometimes in week one. I want to excuse it that way, but how nervous am I? I'm very nervous because let's be honest, as bad as Oregon looked, Texas looked that good, right? So I know we're not allowed to say Texas is back anymore because that's like a trigger for everybody, but Texas looked like they're back, and Oregon looked like, I mean, I could make the argument right now that USC looked more capable going into this than Oregon did, and I didn't think I'd be saying that today. So I think that's a statement I expect a much different version of Oregon the next time they're on the field.
The big game where all the shows are going this weekend is to the Big House in Michigan for Texas. Jason, I don't see this as a very competitive game. I mean, Michigan lost a ton of talent. Texas certainly lost some talent to the NFL as well, but they bring back a more complete team. And I know it's a 1 week sample, and who they played certainly makes a difference. But I see Texas with a double-digit win in Michigan.
Yeah, I got Texas by 20 in this one in our predictions on the college football shows. I think Texas showed exactly, and Quinn Ewers, by the way, we expected this job to already be Arch's, and Arch came in the second half and reminded us why we expected that. Like Arch played lights out for a kid that's like, it was his first college football touchdown pass, and he made it look effortless and a great play with athleticism. And we look at him and say, yep, this is not a situation where Arch hasn't earned the job. This is a situation where Quinn has gone out and kept Arch on the bench. And every time I think Quinn Ewers is going to take a little tiny step back and open that door, he simply doesn't. And again, you want to talk about weapons on the outside. My God, the amount of speed that Texas has everywhere. They were sticky on the defensive side of the ball. Like I think Texas is going to go in and dominate this. And Michigan right now is on the precipice of sort of being in a Clemson situation. Like we've seen Michigan one way, and that's fair for who they are. But who this new Michigan team is, we have no idea. We don't know what their true identity is going to be. We don't know what their true culture is going to be. You knew a Harbaugh team from a mile away. We don't know a Moore team from a mile away. So I think Michigan's got a lot of learning to do about who they're going to be. And this feels like the reset button for them, where for the next couple of years, they're trying to reset the cupboard. The problem is, well, Michigan did a national championship by patience. And we all know the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I think that is a good reminder, Fitz, that it took a long time to get to that point. And for Michigan, for Florida State, the problem of sustaining that comes up here now, because for all the things we said about J.J. McCarthy operating in the system last year, when he had to operate outside of it, he was a guy that had the kind of stuff that tantalized NFL scouts in his bag. And for Davis Warren, who's a great story of what he overcame to get to this point, it was a shaky first performance against a Fresno State team that's going to be a froggy and tough out in the Mountain West, but wasn't something we expected to challenge Michigan in this way. And I mean, he wasn't even the quarterback most of us expected to see coming out of Michigan through camp this season, based on the talent and the star rankings and all that stuff. Let me ask you this, Fitz. Your hometown in Vegas played host to the Sunday night game. We love overreacting to the primetime solo game there. But how much did this change your opinion, if at all, on USC and their standing in the Big Ten?
A ton. I mean, because USC looked capable of being able to just go in and pound the football, right? And I mean, so much has been made about the 1,400 net pounds that they have put on in the weight room over the course of this offseason. And you hear that over and over and over again. But then you ask yourself, what does it look like? And I think an important question here is, who's Lincoln Riley going to be as a play caller when he doesn't have Caleb Williams? And what we found is that, you know, I love any team that can move the line of scrimmage from the outset, right? And USC did it over and over and over again to LSU, and that shouldn't have been able to happen. It felt like the minute they snapped the ball, the line of scrimmage moved 2 yards in their favor every single time. So I was really impressed with their ability to simply continue to press forward. Now, that being said, I'm not overreacting to LSU losing this game, though, because this game came down to 2 or 3 plays. So what's the real takeaway here? USC is much better than we expected. And if that is the takeaway, am I really panicking over a 2 or 3 play game for LSU that's a loss? I'm not. Like, in the modern college football system, LSU has plenty of time to get this right and try and fight their way back into the college football playoff. So the death of Brian Kelly and LSU, I think, is a little overreported, but the rebirth of USC, I was stunned, and I'd really counted them out as being a definitive threat in this year's Big Ten. I thought they'd be kind of cute, but not actually part of the dance. It feels to me like after that one game, they showed that they're far more physical, which is reason to think that they can be part of the dance.
And then we have 2 1-0 teams battling it out, Nebraska and Colorado. After last year's game, Shedeur Sanders talked about Matt Rule not, he wants to act nice now. Don't disrespect my dad. But now this year, Matt Rule and Deion are both playing nice, both talking about how they respect one another. Colorado coming off their big win of North Dakota State. Nebraska and Dylan Raiola, the true freshman, they get a big win. They met second game of the season. Last year, Colorado won that game, part of the first 3 that they won to make everybody go nuts about them. How do you see this game?
I don't, and I know everybody's polarized on Colorado. I get it. I've never seen such an effort to bend over backwards to praise an opponent. We are making North Dakota State sound, I don't know. Those North Dakota kids, they're built different there. Look at that program. That program has great history. What are we doing? Like, if North Dakota State had taken USC to the wire, would we be apologizing for it? If North Dakota State had taken Notre Dame to the wire, would we be apologizing for it? If North Dakota State had taken Georgia to the wire, would we be apologizing for it? No. But we are with Colorado. We're like, I don't know, man. That's a really tough out there. No, it isn't. If you are a premier program in college football that really thinks that you're going to be somewhere in between bowl eligible and playoff eligible, you shouldn't struggle with North Dakota State the way they struggle with North Dakota State over and over and over again. This Colorado defense is just flat out trash. It's bad. It's still bad. It's going to be bad. The very reason Shedeur and Hunter are going to put up Heisman level stats week in and week out is because they have to, because the rest of the roster isn't good enough. So I think Nebraska is going to roll in this game. I just am so tired of we have to sit here and either vilify because of Deion, or we have to apologize because it's Colorado. One way or the other. Like, it was a bad defensive effort against a team they should have walloped.
Oh, I think it was a bad matchup, which is also going to be the case for Nebraska here. Because, Fitz, I think the difference we're talking about, like, no, obviously we wouldn't respond the same way if North Dakota State had played any of those teams tough. At the same time, there's a reason that teams in Colorado's tax bracket usually don't schedule North Dakota State. It's because they're more capable of doing this to a lot of the middle class of FBS football than most of those teams want to have put on wax and put on tape for everybody else based on what they've done. Like, I saw the clip from Deion Sanders the other day talking about the defense for North Dakota State, not even the part we associate with the Bison in the offense, and saying, look at the way they rally to the ball. That's inherited. That's something they passed down. Like, that program does have a secure identity, and we're talking about a day and age now where Colorado's the poster for, man, bleep identity. We're just going to try and get dudes in here and chuck this thing around and see what happens. So I think it's, like you said, simultaneously possible. This Colorado team, very reminiscent of last year, in that the defense, while there are some better bodies in the front 7, I'll go with that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
better bodies in that front 7, better caliber of individuals on that offensive line. Dad probably still going to struggle enough in those areas to where this game against Nebraska, this is the one that everyone's had circled, right? If Colorado manages to play this game close, we're going to talk about them a lot different. It's going to feel like that buzz from last year because everyone seems to be predicting them getting their asses kicked in this game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Nebraska wasn't a very good team last year. They got the all-freshman sensation quarterback, and it was a 36-14 game last year. You know it's going to be a high-scoring game. At least that's what it should be, with the power on the Colorado side, and now the passing game and running game that Nebraska has. That it should be a bit of a shootout. So that's the way I see it going, and let the talk continue with Colorado.
Keep an eye on Nebraska's schedule. That's all I'm saying. Like, Adam Brenneman, my co-host on the College Football Power Hour, predicted Nebraska gets into the college football playoff. Look at that schedule. They got one tough game. If they win this game, the Nebraska hype's going to get out of control.
Yeah, I think that's what people have been pointing to with this team, saying, like, yeah, resurgence is possible. Definitely a bowl team, could challenge for 7 or 8 wins. CFP probably rich for my blood, but what do I know? I'm just a doctor. Check out Jason Fitz hosting, analyzing, yapping over at Yahoo Sports and Fox Sports Radio. Fitzy, appreciate the time, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right, man?
Thank you, boys.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Nail biters, upsets, blowouts. We've seen it all so far in college football. So let's talk about some of the teams that have impressed us the most in a new segment titled Better Yet, presented by Larceny Wheated Bourbon. Lock in a win and seize tonight. Bardstown, Kentucky, 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely. So we know Florida State has struggled, to say the least, fellas, losing their first 2 games. Odds to win the championship way down. I'm talking way down, all the way to plus 30,000. But how about some of the teams that have been improving their odds here? Okay, so Miami, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas, USC, all on the up and up. So who are we buying on the futures market after week 1 in college football? What do we think?
Yeah, Dan, I think there's a couple of clear ones that you'll probably want to get on early now. And Miami's got to be at the top of that list based on what we've seen from the rest of the ACC powerhouses there. And their odds still below where Notre Dame's were to start the season as one of the top 5 or 6 favorites to win the national title, given what people know about the Irish's schedule and path. They're still obviously a live dog, but plus 1,600. You can get Miami at plus 2,500 right now. Notre Dame started the season at plus 2,200. And I just think that team with the path laid out before them, I'm surprised that reaction wasn't even stronger, quite honestly, considering just how hard they put it on Florida in a road SEC environment, albeit we know against a team that has struggled to get off the ground. So that to me was the one that jumped off the list most, just because, hey, you can still get them right now at a price that's only going to get worse from here, as this team I think is pretty consistently going to look like this.
I agree. I mean, you can still get them at a good price. I mean, we talk about Notre Dame's favorable schedule. Miami is the same way. They play Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida. Then they have Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville could be a tough one. Florida State, we don't know what the hell they are. Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. I think their schedule is laid out like Notre Dame's. Notre Dame may have gotten one of their hardest game out of the way on the road in week number 1 at Texas A&M. I know they have Florida State again. We've seen Mike Norvell lose a few in a row, but then go on a string of winning, 5-6 games in a row. So this team will get better. It just depends on how much better. And then Notre Dame obviously has USC at the end of the year, who looked really, really good in week 1 in their win over LSU. But I'm with you. I mean, Notre Dame's, the Miami's odds are worse than Notre Dame. So it's the one to jump on from a betting standpoint for sure, to make more on the return, because I think their schedule could be just as favorable as Notre Dame's.
Yeah, Notre Dame, again, they're one now. I think if you still buy them now, you're going to buy a team that's going to vastly improve still. The offense has a couple of weeks to start to get right before any of the other teams, because we've talked about, Florida State and SC in the backloaded part of the schedule, and Florida State, who knows what that's going to be at that point. But Georgia Tech, who we've clearly seen, here to probably stay and party. Louisville, who's still expected to be one of the better teams in the ACC. You're going to have some spots where you're going to get tested. And so I think for that team, Riley Leonard and that offense, can they air it out a little bit more? Is that offensive line going to start to gel as they get more starts under their belt and improve with some of those young players to be able to do more than what it was, which is basically hold serve, Dad. The Notre Dame offense's job this last weekend was to go out there and not screw it up for the defense. And to their credit, they executed that game plan. Like Riley Leonard, a remarkable amount of poise, him as a value add in the run game, the play calling, all of it was A+. Now we want to see, hey, those receivers that you brought over in the portal, outside of a couple of well-timed catches, can they be a steadier diet in this offense? Because we've seen, if you're going to try and contend with the best groups in the sport this season, you're going to have to be able to move the ball over the yard. You see the flies back after me again. You see it.
Yeah, the fly.
Are you afraid it's going to sting you? Like, what's going on?
Mike,
it's a fly.
No, I don't want it to go in my mouth. I'm a big yapper. I'm a wide talker. And if I swallow this fly, then we're going to have trouble. And that's
You're
going to
have a little
real
extra
protein.
How
close it keeps
you could probably use
head.
it. It's protein.
There are flies that have been around everybody all their lives, and I've never heard of one flying into your mouth. Not going to fly into your mouth.
You've never heard someone swallowing a fly. You're the man who used to say, great protein, when that kind of stuff would happen as a joke. And you're going to tell me you've never been around somebody that had a fly go into their mouth.
No, not a fly. Not a fly.
What are you going to do to get it after the show? Do you roll up a little, dish towel?
I'm going to beat it to death with a shoe. I thought I hit it last night with a pillow. We've been going at it for a while now.
I hope it didn't lay any eggs.
Wow. Protect yourself at all costs.
Hey, man, it's been a brutal day over here. All right, let's go to Heisman winners, Jesse, and take a look at this. We've done some of the team stuff there. And I think really outside of that, I mean, USC, if you want to go long there, I just think for some of these teams, the conference is going to matter. That's why Miami's so enticing because the ACC looks wide open right now. USC in the Big Ten, and I still, like, we talked to Fitzy about it, and I know he really liked what he saw, but there is part of me that said, hey, would we be this bullish if USC had played the exact same and LSU had found a way to pull that out in a close game? Those teams are so similar and were such question marks in the same areas that while I know, hey, all right, Lincoln Riley could still coach offense. The defensive front seven looks improved for USC with Danton Lynn there as the coordinator. I still don't know if I'm ready to make a huge leap for them. You can get them at plus 6,000. So if you really want to buy low and just do a little bit of sprinkle there, I would understand because, Dad, they showed enough promise. And again, another team whose schedule probably should have earned them more benefit of the doubt this season than they got in the preseason talk.
Yeah, of the teams we're talking about, it's only Oklahoma State who has higher odds at 12 plus 12,000. But I would throw, if I had to choose between the two, I would throw it on USC, even though they're in the tougher division. That's why Texas just made a minimal jump because again they're in the SEC. They're going to be one of the better teams in the SEC, but they're still in the SEC. I can see why Miami made the jump that they made, and it is because they're in the ACC. There's no doubt conference has something to do with it.
All right, Jesse, let's look at those Heisman odds. What do we got going on in the changes here?
Yeah, a lot of movement up and down. Guys, Shedeur and Travis Hunter both had a lot of movement here. So went from plus 5,000 to plus 2,200 for Shedeur. Travis Hunter went from plus 4,500 to plus 2,500. A big one here, too. Jackson Dart for Ole Miss. He went from plus 1,600 to plus 850. So any of these really stand out to you guys?
Well, I mean, for Shedeur and for Travis Hunter, I would probably say Travis Hunter should be higher on that list than Shedeur at this point. Shedeur played great. Like, he has been a guy that has consistently delivered under pressure there. But the novelty of the Travis Hunter experience, if one of those guys is going to pull it off, I would bet on it being him. That being said, we still know it's a long shot, Dad, because of the caliber of team we think they're ultimately going to be.
Yeah, I think it's a long shot, but I agree. I think Travis Hunter would be ahead of Shedeur with the novelty, as you mentioned, that he brings. Shedeur is going to have some incredible numbers, and he didn't turn the ball over a lot, just got sacked an awful lot. I think the one that people may have missed out on getting better odds was Cam Ward, going from 2,500 to plus 950 now. Cam Ward, I mean, really, really showed out. I know it was 1 week, but you know, he's a guy that you're going to keep an eye on with this offense. So, and Shedeur and Travis, can they split votes, take votes from one another? Jackson Dart, again, he dropped below 1,000. He was at plus 1,600, now plus 850. So listen, there's 1 week. The Heisman race is still wide open, just like the college football playoff is wide open. But this is what we do. After 1 week, we kind of jump in. We say who gained and who lost. So this is the fun of week to week.
I know Dylan Gabriel still holding that pole position despite an offensive performance that, you know, he had good throws in there. It wasn't like it was all on him. You know, the strip sack before the half robs them of going up 3 scores. But, you know, Jalen Milroe still at plus 1,100. You can get him there, and that Alabama offense looks like it's going to hum. Quinn Ewers dropping back a lot at plus 1,400, so you can get him at a better number now for a Texas offense that we saw is still going to go out there and put up video game type numbers. So I think those are a couple of interesting ones to look at. I'm probably not going to buy the Drew Aller hype. I know Fitz liked it. I still think there are some things about that against upper echelon competition that are going to make this difficult. What is this? Old lady who swallowed a fly? There was an old lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. Perhaps. What the hell is this? What kind of sicko stuff are we going on back here?
I don't know. That's for
No.
voting.
What is that? No, I never read that book.
What book is this? We're going to have to do some research in the break because our production staff is scaring the hell out of me.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. The guys will be in KC tomorrow to watch Nnamdi Madubuike try to contain Patrick Mahomes. Here they are earlier this week catching up with Madubuike.
Week 1 rolling along, and excited to talk to one of the guys that's hopefully going to be a big part of making a splash on Thursday night when we kick off the season here. Ravens star defensive tackle and new money earner, by the way, Nnamdi Madubuike, kind enough to join us now here on the show. Good morning, and first off, we haven't obviously talked to you before. Congratulations on a well-deserved contract after last season. I have to imagine it feels very different going into a training camp last year, getting ready to try and push during this contract season versus now walking in as one of the franchise pillars.
Yeah, I've been trying to make it more than what it was. I know the contract situation was going to get done. I didn't know when, but it got done. At a time that I felt was good, because after it's all said and done, I can focus on just staying with my family a little bit and then getting back to work. So, it's a great feeling, it's a great thing, but definitely more hungry. And it's funny. Some people, they get a contract like that and they're like, oh man, I'm good. It made me more hungry. So it's a good thing. And I'm just ready to get back to work with the guys every day.
Well, it was cool. You bet on yourself by not taking the offer that they had before, and you bet on yourself and you won. It's a great thing as former players. We love seeing the players win. Also, with all that money, did you have to give any up to Ronnie Stanley or Kyle Hamilton on the Notre Dame? We're a couple of former Notre Dame football players, and they just took care of your Aggies at Kyle Field. How'd that work with Ronnie and Kyle?
Ronnie was talking smack after. Me and Kyle had a bet. If A&M won, he would put Johnny Manziel as background. If Notre Dame won, I put Rudy as my background. So. That's just what it was. But it wasn't no money involved or nothing. It was just, a little play. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in my Aggies, but I think we're going to bounce back.
You know what? You got something new to focus on this week, and an actual opponent. You guys are done with training camp, so now that college football had its weekend here, you guys are a part of the opening night for the NFL, going and taking on the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, obviously a team that you guys also saw in the postseason. So what are the emotions like with that? Obviously, a rematch here is not going to change any of what happened last year, but is there added motivation with it being this Chiefs team?
I would say it's definitely not a good taste in our mouth, the fact that that's the last team that we lost to. But it's a new season, it's the first game. It's a lot of excitement because I guess people are saying, quote unquote, oh, this is how I don't know. It's just the next game. I'm taking it as that. I'm taking it as the next game. It's a long season. It's the last game that we played. So, we're watching a bunch of NFC Championship film, things that we could have done better. But they're a good team. They won Super Bowl, obviously. So we're just trying to make sure that we clean up the things that we did wrong and try to move forward and be great.
One thing that changes every year is the makeup of a team, and that includes coaches. You lose your D coordinator, Mike McDonald, to Seattle. He also takes with him a couple, Denard Wilson, Anthony Weaver as well. You get a new coordinator, Zach Gore, who's been there as a linebacker coach, but a new D-line coach in Dennis Johnson from Baylor. So talk about the difference, and he's new to the NFL and just how that has gone.
Yeah, he's new to the NFL. He coming from Baylor, but definitely has a love for the game, love for football, love for the trenches and D-line. So he's always amped up, excited every day to get to work. And I love when coaches like that bring that type of energy. Lift everybody up. So I'm excited to move forward in this season with him, and with the whole team is too, and the whole D-line is too, and we're just gonna keep getting after it every day. That's all we can do.
What about with Zach at the helm? Obviously, again, he's a guy super familiar with that building. We always talk about having former players as a coach. It's one thing for that. It's another to have a guy who's like less than a decade removed from wearing the exact uniform that you wore. So what's it been like with him in that lead role now in the defensive meeting room?
Zach, he keeps it real. Like you said, he wore our uniforms. He played in the Ravens and the helmet. So, he definitely has been around the guys like T. Sizzle, Ray Lewis, all these guys that are big time players, in this franchise. So he keeps it real. He keeps it real in terms of how to take care of your body. He keeps it real in the mentality that you have to have towards practice. He brings that juice. He brings that energy. So it's all positive things. It's all positive things to take us to where we know that we can get to.
So during practices in training camp, when you go best on best, now obviously you can't tackle Lamar Jackson, but you got a new running back and a big dude named Derrick Henry. How is that gone when good on good's going on and you got to hit that big boy?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a D lineman, it's just another running back. He's a different caliber, but it's another running back. But he definitely brings that excitement to the offense. He's a great player, great person as well. And I'm looking forward to just going along this journey with him. We have a great team and we have great potential. We just have to keep putting the work in one day at a time. That's all we can do. That's all we're gonna do.
We talked about some of the voices that are gone in your guys' defensive locker room. Obviously, there's some players that signed great free agent deals elsewhere because of the success that you guys had last season. But people have pointed to, this linebacker core, Kyle Hamilton in the safety room as reasons why that success can go year over year. I'm curious for you, last season, big breakout year. What about this defense in particular, the structure of it, what's asked of you on the D-line, was the perfect marriage for your skill set and allowed that kind of success to happen?
Talking about last year?
Yeah, last year, and just why this defense fits you so well as a player.
I think the defense fits me well as a player, just in the sense of, I can play 3 tech. That's my primary. I can be out in the defensive end spot. I can hold my own at the nose. I just feel like I'm just very versatile on the defensive line. That's just what I feel will just helps me be a great player on this defense. Having Kyle in the back, having Roquan behind me, those are big time players that make big time plays. So, I just think, I guess you could say we're like a 3-headed monster, but there's definitely other guys that contribute for sure. It's really a 11-head monster. Everybody can play very, very well at a high level. So, it's just everybody just believing in each other, taking it one day at a time, and just keep working.
Every player prepares differently in your prep work, especially in the film room. I'm sure you do both of watching the scheme of the line, but how much do you watch the individual players' technique that you're going to play against?
Days like today, it's like a regular Thursday, like a pass rushing day and stuff like that. I definitely watch some of the guys on the O-line, whatever opponent I'm facing. Chuck Smith does a great job in breaking things down on the film room as a defensive front and things that can work and things that can that you can avoid. That he's strong at. So all these little things, just these little details, just adding up together, and then you put your own little spin on it, and seeing that what can I do as a player to make an impact on this D-line against a certain player. And you do your own due diligence and do your own film, and you have confidence and you go out there and play.
And, a couple of the guys you're going to go against, certainly Creed Humphrey, a guy like you, signed an extension this offseason. Some great players there. We know for everyone, though, a lot of the focus with Kansas City is going to be on the quarterback and Patrick Mahomes. We've heard other teams talk about defending him before, but as a guy who's played against him already, understands the caliber of player there, what is the approach for someone like Pat, who now has such a well-established reputation in this league?
Yeah, the approach is hit him, get him down, just like any other quarterback that we play. I don't try to make it more complicated. I don't try to make it E equals MC squared. I just try to make it ABC 1, 2, 3, like go. And we have game plans, that help us, in that format. Obviously, we have things that we have to do because he's such a dynamic player. We have to, definitely scheme him a little bit different. But I think they're thinking the same way. The Ravens defense is a super physical defense. We have to scheme them a different way. So it's 2 good matchups.
No, there's no doubt, especially after last season. You guys are a weapon on both sides of the ball, really, that now teams have to account for. And we know that's going to be the Chiefs' problem on Thursday night, trying to account for what you guys do there. It's going to be an exciting game and a great kickoff to the season. Nnamdi, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Congrats on the new deal and best of luck this season. All right, man?
For sure, man. Appreciate y'all, man. Thank you.
right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick ones to send you into the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Same good time, same good place on the DraftKings Network. And streaming on Samsung TV Plus, Roku channel, Xumo Play, and DraftKingsNetwork.com. If you miss us live or any of our great guests, and we had an awesome group today, thank you to Jevon Holland, Miami Dolphins safety, Nnamdi Madubuike, defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, and our buddy Jason Fitz, analyst and host over at Yahoo Sports. If you miss any of those interviews, you can check them out in their entirety wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done. It's time to get to this, that, and the third, which is brought to you by our friends at Knockaround Sunglasses. Had to bust these out since we are going to the home of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. These were some of my favorite frames from last year. I believe these are the Torrey Pines frames, but they are the Las Vegas Super Bowl edition. Dad's got the Shark Weeks from last summer there right now. Dad, that looks positively 80s of you, so that feels really on brand. And it's just a reminder, Knockaround's got something for everybody that you can all check out. So if you go to knockaround.com and use code GoJo Golic, you can pick up a new pair of Go-To polarized shades, just like my dad, who looks very good right now.
Yes, I do. And feeling good. And love the Shark Week motif. Love that. Love how they do the theme things.
Wow.
And I look good.
You do look good.
I look good.
You do look good. And you know what? Everyone can look good for your head shape, all that stuff. They've got all the NFL frames. We got Chiefs sunglasses you'll see when we're out in Kansas City. They got the NFL, NHL, NBA. And you know what? With the NHL in mind, why don't we use that to segue into this? As we got money coming out in the NHL, we know that the Oilers this last year had a disappointing finish to the season after getting so tantalizing close to finally getting the cup with this current core. They're going to at least try and keep locking it down. Leon Draisaitl signs an 8-year, $112 million extension for the highest average annual value in history. So, Dad, they start to try and lock down that core when you look at what they've done. His 850 points in 719 games over his last 10 NHL seasons is the third highest in that span. The other guy that he's looking up at, one of them, his teammate Connor McDavid, who's got 982 in that time. So we know McDavid is up after next season. They're going to have to figure out how to lock down him in that core, as well as defenseman Evan Bouchard. But at the very least, starting to make the dominoes fall to see if they can keep this group together and try and keep knocking on that door.
Yeah, Draisaitl with the highest cap hit number since hockey went to that cap. When his extension kicks in, it'll be $14 million a year. The highest is a little over 12. Connor McDavid being one of them, at making 12.5 per year for the next 2 years. But they're just trying to protect themselves to keep one of their stars if McDavid ends up somewhere else, or unless they can get a deal done. They'll be paying a lot of money to McDavid, that's for sure. But congrats to Draisaitl. We see the big-time players get the long deals, the 7-8 year deals. They definitely lock them up for a while in hockey.
No, there's no doubt, and richly deserved here again. We knew the talent on this roster. That's what made this run up to the cup so very painful. So fingers crossed. Congratulations there. Jesse, let's keep the money train rolling. We started with money today. We'll finish with money, new money during the show that got doled out to an NFL star.
Yeah, Patrick Surtain and the Broncos have agreed to terms on a 4-year extension worth $96 million, $24 million per year. So that's $77.5 million guaranteed. It makes him the highest paid DB in NFL history. Pretty cool, guys. That is a lot of money. I mean, you can't even fathom that type of money. That is so much money.
Nope. And Dad, glad to see this done. This was something that I think people were surprised didn't get done earlier this offseason for the guy who is unquestionably the Broncos' best player on the roster right now, plays a premium position, has done all the things you expected. So for George Payton, the GM there, to reward this kind of behavior seems like the only logical outcome for this.
And he really kind of jumped to the highest paid. He's now the 6th player to average over $20 million a year, starting at 5, or the 5th was Jalen Ramsey, then Denzel Ward, then A.J. Terrell, then Jair Alexander, and Antoine Winfield was the highest paid at $21,025,000, as opposed to Alexander's $21 million. The rest were in the right at 20, and so Surtain jumps to 24. So he really jumps the market up pretty highly. But congrats to him. Most guaranteed money as well. The money is absolutely pouring out for these guys.
Yeah, and looking at this Denver team, we talked about Justin Simmons, who now doesn't reside there anymore, was cut this offseason and now signed with the Atlanta Falcons. And so the premium for that group, a defense that we know struggled early last year, stabilized some late, has other guys you can maybe get excited about in the front seven, but in the secondary, it's the Pat Surtain, the second show. And so for them to do that with him, hugely important there. One other bit of NFL news that we got during the show, Devin White, the linebacker newly acquired by the Philadelphia Eagles this season, ruled out for Friday's game. So, Dad, we talked earlier about that matchup a little bit with Green Bay, and Devin White was part of the group where, hey, maybe he wasn't the perfect answer, but the Eagles trying to go out and supplement the areas of their defense they struggled with, and now already going to be without one of those for the first game of the season.
They so minimalized their linebacking core last year from a money standpoint, and then had players that they did have get hurt. So it was one of the huge weaknesses that in the secondary of that defense. And Devin White, I mean, the dude's a tackling machine, and he's got an ankle issue, not even going to make the trip to Brazil. So certainly a cog they could use, not going to be there.
Yep, and we know the rest of that linebacker group, Nakobe Dean, who they've been waiting to come on, and unfortunately doesn't seem like he's gotten the traction they expected as what we thought was going to be more of a mid-round steal out of Georgia. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., obviously the great story, their fifth-round pick in the draft this year. His dad, a former Eagles legend at linebacker. So already, I think one of the scariest things, and probably triggering some PTSD from last year, if you're an Eagles fan, right? Yep. Dealing with injury at the linebacker position and down the middle of that defense, going to likely keep them up at night. So that's the news for week one there, but congratulations to the new money for Pat Surtain. Jesse, let's get to the third. Maybe he can spend it at a fine eating establishment now headlined by actor and head coach Dan Campbell.
Yeah, the crossover event we've all been waiting for. Dan Campbell and Applebee's. Watch this.
Welcome to Applebee's. Can I interest you in America's favorite boneless wings for just 50 cents each?
I'll have the 50-cent bone.
Cover your mouth. They could steal your order.
I'll have the 50-cent boneless wings.
I'll have the same.
Perfect. They'll never see it coming.
That was really funny. That was good. I thought that was good.
He's the buy-in from a lot of these coaches that we've seen, because I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, the folks at Omaha Productions and the Manning Cast also put out an extended Broadway bit that they did that involved basically every meaningful player or coach in the NFL. And I got to say, the buy-in from Dan Campbell here, who seems to ooze a natural charisma, he's being himself in here, was only matched by the Harbaugh brothers in that Omaha Productions video. If there's one thing that Jim and John are going to do, it's commit to a damn bit in a way that most of their peers are afraid to. So my applause there for Dan Campbell, who we love to see getting any good thing that comes his way.
Oh, I just love to see when coaches get involved. Coaches have the moniker of just being, blinders on, not knowing any popular TV shows or movies because they're too busy coaching. It's great to see the other side. You see Andy Reid in the commercials with Mahomes. So I love seeing these coaches kind of take a break and do their thing.
Does this top Andy Reid saying, now give me another one of those nuggies, or is he still...
Nuggies.
Because we've had conversations about the best acting player, where I thought it was Baker Mayfield for a long time. Josh Allen might be biting into some of that now, but we haven't talked about the acting coaches. And Andy Reid, you're right, has had a lot of brand exposure lately. Dan Campbell, like he's trying to on the field, might be coming for the crown now.
Dan Campbell, I thought he did a great job. I thought he sold it incredibly well. Maybe that this will start the commercial train rolling for Dan Campbell. If this team's doing great, why not take advantage?
Bro, if you are Chili's, you got to pounce on Andy Reid right now. Because if this is where Applebee's wants to plant their flag, I'm sorry, still firmly a Chili's household here unless Applebee's wants to give us some of their money. Thanks for or shout out to us for giving you some of the free advertising there. This is Chili's family over on this side, and I think we should align ourselves with Andy Reid in the wars to come. We hope you align yourselves with us. If you want to, download, subscribe, rate, review the show, leave it a 5-star rating. Thanks. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Kansas City.